Welcome to episode 67 of Talking Prisoner. My name's Matt Batten, and my next guest is a actor and director. He appeared in 32 episodes of Prisoner. He played a very instrumental part in the Major Lou Kelly riot and saved the life of a very loved inmate. He has an extensive career in theatre shows such as Elephant Man, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and many more. He had one of the greatest hairstyles of the 80s, which I keep pointing out, and was also a heartthrob. Welcome to Talking Prisoner, Peter Hayes.
Thank you very much, Matt. That's a very overblown intro, and I appreciate all of that. Yeah.
No, thank you for your time, my friend, and it's good to see you again. And we caught up last year at the annual Talking Prisoner event in
Yes.
Richmond with Linda Hartley, Sean Scully, Kate Hood, Cheryl Monks, and a few others. What do you think of that?
Kim Trengove, don't forget her.
Kim Trengo,
Um,
we
yes.
had nine
Uh,
actually.
yes. No, it was a very fine day. Very eye-opening to find out how many fans are still very keen on the show, and just catching up with some people I hadn't seen for a long time. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. Are you surprised at what the fans know about the show compared to what the cast know?
They know a lot more than I do. I tell you that those questions they're answering, it's mind boggles. They've obviously watched it more than once.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere one fan on our page said he's done the entire run of Prisoner 8 times.
My
Six.
goodness me,
Yeah.
my that I'd like to meet that person and find out what happened to them. No, no, that is. Look, I'm sure it does reward constant reviewing, and there's some scenes I'd love to see again too.
Yeah, it's great when I do these interviews because I've seen it, but I go back and just do some research and check certain scenes out. And yeah, there's some great scenes that we'll talk about shortly. Now, before we do, I just want to learn about your life growing up. Where were you born? Where did you grow up as a child?
I was born in Melbourne. Uh, Now, and this is something that I have in the past said I was born on Grand Final Day in Melbourne, but it was actually the week after. And I don't know why my parents lied to me about this for many years. In fact, it's only because you can now Google things. And I thought, oh, what was it like the weather the day I was born? And
Yeah.
I went back to September 28, 1957, and I found that the grand final had been played the week before. And so my father's team, Melbourne, had not just won their third premiership in a row when I was born. It was a week after. Now, um, and I've been telling people for a long time because I thought it might mean that I was the holy one, the sacred one for Melbourne, that I was born at this time. But no. Um,
Who won the
so
Who won the grand final at that time? Oh,
Melbourne,
Melbourne.
my
Right.
father's team. Now, I support Hawthorn, of course.
Gavin Hawthorne
Who
support.
played in the finals for the first time in 1957. But no, so I was born there. At the time, my father was the secretary of the Student Christian Movement, which is a university bunch of Christians. I have to disclose I was born into a rather radical sect called Methodism, and I've since escaped, but that's another story. And he travelled up and down the east coast of Australia with my mother that first year, and then he was put out. He started as a minister, and they decided to teach this young upstart a lesson. So they put him in Queenstown, Tasmania.
Oh,
So I
wow.
spent the second and third years of my life in Queenstown, Tasmania, and then and that's the place that has a football ground that has the no grass. It's basically pebbles and dirt, and the visiting teams don't like it. Um, and then we went to America, where my father was studying at Vanderbilt University in Nashville for 5 years.
Oh, wow. Nashville.
And then, and if the cultural shock of going from Queenstown to Nashville, Tennessee wasn't enough, my parents then went to Port Moresby up in Papua New Guinea for 3 years, where I finished my primary schooling. And then we returned to Melbourne, where I'd went to my father's and my grandfather's old school, Wesley College.
Oh, you
This
were
is
a
where
Wesley boy.
yes, I was. This is where the being born into the Methodist sect comes into play. And finished there, went to the University of Melbourne, spent a long time at the University of Melbourne. Some of that time I was working for Her Majesty's Customs, doing studies part-time. the people who knew me at university would say I did all my studies part-time, which probably explains why I then went to drama school in the UK, and came back to Australia and pretty quickly found myself in Prisoner. That was
Yeah.
85. Yeah, we shot in 85 and went to air in 86. Yeah.
What was Wesley like? Because I mean, there's a lot of famous people that have come out of
Oh,
Wesley.
yes, Harold Holt, Robert Menzies, of course. We were always told that prime ministers had come out of there. Michael Kroger was in my year. Now, some of you
Oh,
might know
really?
Michael Kroger. Yes,
Yeah.
he. No, I like to think I'm a bit of a lefty, and I like to think that Michael Kroger's done more than I ever could have done to hurt the Liberal Party. Watching Michael, thumbs up to you, mate. But yeah, Wesley was a single-sex school then. It became co-educational, I think, in the
Oh,
90s, which
okay.
was a great change because then the teachers could molest girls as well as boys. No, sorry, get off the record. Get it off the record. There's legal cases coming up that might be affected by loose talk.
Yeah.
No, Wesley was, yeah. I mean, give credit to the Methodists. They do believe in education, and it's a very good school now, I believe. Back then, we were sort of all right. We weren't as good at sport as the big schools, the sort of Scotch College, Xavier. We
Yeah.
remember being absolutely belted by Scotch at football that year. It was horrible. But we won the soccer premiership in my
Oh,
final. So
so you're a
probably
keen
because
footy player.
well, I played both at school. I played Australian rules, and I'd been playing soccer because of the whole Port Moresby thing. I learned to play soccer there, and I should call it football, the world game. But in Melbourne, you can't get away with that.
Yeah.
But then I was tall, and the coach of the first 18 saw me in a house match and said, "I think you should come and play for the first 18." So I had to leave. You weren't allowed to play in both, so I had to leave mid-season. I came back at the end of the season, and we managed to clean up the premiership in the soccer, which was good.
Oh,
Great success.
excellent. What was it like moving to Nashville as a child? Like, how old were you when you moved to
Well, I was
Nashville?
only 3 when we went there, but I did start my school there, and it was quite extraordinary. I mean, I can remember things like JFK's assassination.
Oh, wow.
I remember that in a strange parallel incident, as we were let off school early that day because the news came through and everyone out of school, and a kid threw a snowball, hit me in the neck, and I thought that I somehow felt for JFK being, but I don't know, it was terrible to watch the country go absolutely mad with grief.
Yeah.
I remember we got a day off school and the whole funeral ceremony, and back then, of course, television was all black and white, so it was terribly bleak. And the young children of the Kennedys sort of there at the funeral of their father, and you think, oh, who could, this is terrible. Who shoots people, and what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting to be in America then, and to see how Americans are taught. I remember we had the flag in the corner of the room, and every day we saluted the flag. We sang "My Country 'Tis of Thee," "Sweet Land of Liberty," which went to the tune of "God Save the Queen." We didn't sing the other American national anthem. I don't know why. Maybe it was still a sort of Confederate thing in Tennessee. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was. Yeah, America was a very interesting place at that time. Color TV was just arriving. I remember seeing the first episode of Get Smart, things like that,
Oh,
as
really?
young, and then to go from there to quite different situation in sort of colonial, subtropical Port Moresby or tropical Port Moresby. It's not subtropical up there, and yeah, it was a great sort of dynamic to have sort of Nashville on one hand and Port Moresby on the other, to sort of go, oh well, the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just remember, yeah, it was a great time just to see what America's like, and to understand the education that they get in how great America is.
Yeah.
When we have this president coming in who's going to make America great again, their idea of what great is quite extraordinary.
What do you think of the current state of politics in America?
Well, it seems to be signaling the end of Western democracy to me, but that's uh, yeah, it will be very interesting times in which we live, as the old Chinese curse goes. I'm
Yeah.
sure the Chinese are very happy with the situation in America now because they can just watch and let things happen as the Chinese like to do, and then just they'll be there.
Now, did you start in theatre at a younger age, like when you were younger? Was that your...
Well, talking in Port Moresby, I think I started actually. My father was a uniting church minister up there. They didn't have enough people to have their sort of Protestant sects, so the Presbyterians, Congregationalists, and Methodists were all lumped in together long before they decided to do that in Australia. And I remember being in a church play. I think my first role was one of the minor characters when Paul saw Christ on the road to Damascus. And I was one of his offsiders and suitably impressed by what was happening. And then I got plucked from obscurity when I was in grade 6 to be one of the three of us played the role of everyman in 1066 and all that. Now, 1066 and all that's a funny English play about history going sort of through English history and just having songs and dancing and funny things about Henry VIII and all that sort of thing. And the original play had the common man, but these people had done a version of it with schoolboy instead. And so the director's son got to play 2 performances. I got to play 1, and another boy got to play 1. I can't remember their names, I'm afraid. But I do remember singing, the final thing was singing, I'm in the cart, I'm in the cart. I've always been there from the start, all that sort of thing. And it was just great fun. I remember, there were sort of all sorts of people in it, and it was just a matter of sort of having fun and enjoying yourself and being a raucous boy, which tremendous fun in Port Moresby back in 1968. So that was that was the start. And then when I went to school, I was always in the school various year 7, year 8 plays, and just until I was fortunate to be cast as Hamlet in my final year at school.
Wow.
Which is not the sort of thing they do to people who are doing their HSC these days. But I was able to quote extensively from Hamlet in my English essays, and that seemed to do some good. I got a good mark in English. They were impressed that somebody could just write 15 lines of Hamlet in the middle of an exam, I suppose. They hadn't done the research. They didn't know I was really cheating. But yeah. So that, and with that, we went up to Canberra because they had a play from each state. Went up to Canberra for a national conference, and no, it was that was quite the thing to see other states doing much better plays.
Yeah. I love Canberra. Like Melbourne's obviously where I live, and I'm home and grown here. But Canberra, I have a soft spot for some reason.
Well, and I'd be curious. And I've got a cousin who lives in Canberra. He's a public servant and does very well. It's a lovely place if you like living in the suburbs.
Yeah,
it's all suburbs and roundabouts. A lot of roundabouts. Do you like roundabouts?
Roundabouts. There is a lot there.
No. They even have roundabouts with traffic lights, which I thought was extraordinary. Last time I was up there, this roundabout's got a traffic light. I don't seem to have understood the concept at all.
It's the purpose of the roundabout.
Well, it did seem to.
What was it like growing up in such a religious family?
Don't trigger trauma. Because after Wesley College, very good education, very good Christian school, but after they still taught science there, and after doing quite well in first year 7 science, I was able to tell my parents that there is no God, and unfortunately, my father didn't see the error of his ways and continued in his service of God as a minister of the church. He was chaplain at Monash University at the time,
Wow.
and didn't turn him around at all. And my parents were pretty sure it's just a stage I was going through. And unfortunately, sort of, I still seem to be going through that stage, Matt. I believe in science. Call me crazy.
Science, yeah. Follow the science.
Yeah.
All right, now, one of the greatest shows in TV history. You appeared in, well, according to IMDb, which can be wrong, 32 episodes. Uh,
Yes.
and it was quite a dark time of prison when you actually came into it. There was a lot going on with the Phantom Lager and the Lou Kelly riot and new governor
Yes.
and everything. How did you get the part for Steve Ryan? How did it all go?
Well, I walked into Jan Russ's office at some point, and she must have sort of liked the look of me and thought you'd be good in this. And they gave me an audition and sort of said, "Oh yes, here we are." And I said, "Oh well, that's good. Thank you. I'd like a job." And it was, yeah, it was. There was a lot. I remember there was a two-page character dossier that after I'd seen that and I sort of got to reading the scripts, I went, "Oh, whatever happened to that?" And it was full of surprises. Prisoner.
Oh, so it was a different character breakdown. to who you-
Well, there was a character breakdown that was written by somebody who may not have talked to the people writing the scripts. I don't know, but it was a lovely thing. I think there was walks on the beach with my dog and all sorts of stuff. But when I got into the show, I found that you get your scripts 2 weeks in advance, and so you sort of never know what you're going to do. It's not like you can go, okay, where's the character arc? What's going to happen? How do I build this? You just go, okay, well, this week I'm doing this. I'll do that as well as I can. Oh, no, this week I'm doing that. Oh, well, I better do, okay. My first shot, famously, of course, you'll remember, was me getting into a swimming pool, shot through gnomes. That I think that must be one of the classic introductory scenes of all time for any character. Of course, it was shot in August in Melbourne.
About to ask
And
you about that.
August, yeah. No, I'm in Budgie Smugglers in
Ah,
August in Melbourne, and the crew were very kind. They sort of, because there was a spa bath, sort of, there's a pool somewhere out in Glen Waverley or somewhere where we were, and Kendall Flanagan was the director for the first episode, and Kendall, son of a psychiatrist, had eccentric tastes and he shot me through gnomes. There's the swimming pool, there's me getting into it, and there's gnomes appearing, rather like I look now, I suppose. And so they and it was cold. It was cold.
were
But
you thinking about the the every time I think about cold water and men and
Oh no, because they'd taken care of that, because they'd heated up the sort of spa bath section of
oh,
the
that's all right.
pool.
There's
And
nothing like that
oh,
Seinfeld episode with the shrinkage.
yeah, no, we don't need to talk about that sort of smutty stuff, Matt. No. No, but they they had, so they had this steaming spa bath. Now the problem was I was coming out of that like a lobster. I was coming out looking pink, which might have been very sunburnt, but that didn't make sense if I was a doctor. I should have been using sunscreen, even back in the 80s when you had to use sunscreen.
Okay, yeah.
And so yeah, so they had to cool it. Oh, sorry, we've got to cool it down a bit. So that's all right, because you couldn't have steam coming off. That sort of blew the cover of we're in August shooting it as though it's January. And so yeah, that was a very amusing beginning. So there's all these people in sort of duffel coats and rugged up with scarves and beanies on, and I'm there in my budgie smugglers hopping in and out of this lobster pot, sort of boiling water. Yeah, no, it was a very amusing start to it. And then I think my next shots were in hospital with Gwen, the
Joy Westmore, who played Joyce
yes,
Curry. Yeah,
yes, that's right. Because she'd been hit over the head in another riot at the beginning of the dark period,
Wilder, yeah.
and it was there that and maybe it was sort of, she was a bit still suffering from concussion when she suggested I disguise myself as a handyman, so I could study the women at close quarters for my thesis on the effects of incarceration upon women, which I did try at certain times, because I due to university and playing the university football team and things like that, I had met a lot of medical students and doctors, and I found some of the script writing was not quite in line with standard medical practices or medical education. But they didn't worry about that too much. And so they just sort of tell me to shut up and just read your lines, go ahead.
So going back just a step, and it's funny you talk about the spa scene, because some of the cast talk about that show Holiday Island that they shot in Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's meant to look like tropical paradise, and it's done in Melbourne.
That's funny. That's comedy.
Working with Kendall Flanagan, who directed a lot of your episodes, what was it like? A lot of cast talk about Kendall and how great.
Oh, Kendall's good. No, Kendall was colourful. He had a younger brother who was an actor I knew quite well up in Sydney, Nick Flanagan. But Kendall, I remember vividly on a Friday, we were sort of finishing off the week's shooting, and somebody made a suggestion to Kendall. He said, no, he just said, who's fucking this turkey? Says, you just hold it. And no, he was good, Kendall. He didn't take it too seriously, but a lot of flair, Kendall, and was willing to change things on the run. I remember I had some scene with Penny Ramsey playing my mother, and near the end of my time on the show, just before I was getting married to Jackie Woodburne's character, Julie Egbert, and in the script, some of the scripts back then seemed to be sent in with box tops from people and I hope there's no script writers watching this who'll get terribly insulted, but they were not as succinct as they could be. And I remember saying, "Oh look, Ken, I blue pencil." But he said, "Yeah, cut all that. Just be angry. You don't have to say I'm angry, mother. Yes, you can just be angry. That's all right." Yeah. And you go, "Yes, that might work better. It sounds more like a mother and son arguing." And so he was open to suggestions. He was he'd think of things. Some of the other directors were very focused on getting exactly the shots they'd drawn out. Yep. And it depended what background they'd come from. Some of them, because if they came from a background of being some of them had been camera operators and they'd started like that, so they saw it all in shots, and it all had to be shots. But Kendall, that's fun, yeah. So Kendall was always sort of open, and quite willing to try things.
Yeah. Go back to Penny Ramsey. She played two roles on Prisoner. Jim Fletcher's wife in the early seasons, and then obviously your mother. And she died quite young, which is sad. But what was it like with Penny?
Oh, she was delightful. But again, it was one of those funny things. I suddenly found out that I had a mother, and I still seemed to be living at home, and I had a sister. And she turned up. She had red hair, which made me wonder about the whole family. But then I've got two sisters myself who have auburn hair, so it wasn't too mysterious. But it's the sort of thing that, you go, oh, that's interesting. Okay. So I've been in the show for 4 months, and now I find out I've got a mother, and I'm living at home. Would have maybe framed things differently but that's all. It's all sort of, that wasn't in the original character description. It was dog on the beach walking. Wait a minute, what happened?
Where's that gone?
Yeah, what happened to me living at home? Did you decide that after watching my performance? What's going on?
Yeah, they liked you too much. Obviously meeting Jan Russ, who legend of Australian TV,
yes,
started the careers of so many people. What was it like seeing Jan for the first time?
Oh, she was very sweet and convivial and friendly and encouraging, and all that you'd want a casting person to be, because you sort of need to go into a show thinking, oh, this will be great. And quite a few people came into because Glenda Linscott came into the cast about the same time. Right. And she was terrific, and she was from Sydney as well. And because we all lived in there's an apartment block in South Yarra that we all lived in, and we'd hardly see any of each other because because they were always shooting scenes that I wasn't in, or mostly, and you'd spend a lot of time sort of learning lines when you weren't out shooting things, And so, but it was just, yeah, it's funny. Deborah Lawrence was in that, living there for a while. Yeah, it's just
Oh,
sort of.
you live with Deborah Lawrence. Wow.
Well, she was
Yeah.
in the block. Yeah,
On the
we all
block.
had sort of our sort of our apartments. They probably should make a series about what it was like to be an actor in one living in one of those
Number
sort of
96.
yeah, number 96 with actors sort of going off to doing strange things. Yeah, it was um, yeah, it was yeah, it's funny because we you didn't spend a lot of time socializing because it was a very busy shooting schedule. I mean, you're right at it, 5 days a week, and you're shooting the outside broadcasts for next week's show and next week's shows, and you're shooting this week. We're shooting a lot of television very fast. You realise.
And that's what the cast actually mentioned on a lot of these interviews. Like 2 episodes a week. It was really intense what they were shooting.
Yeah, yeah, you get through it. You don't muck around. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you started out as a doctor and then become the handyman and
Yes.
got married. Would you have liked to have stayed on the show longer as maybe like start off as the prison doctor and have a longer running role on the show, or you were happy with
Well,
the
I mean, I was basically brought in to as Julie Egbert's love interest. They wanted to give her a nice exit, I think, from the show
Yep.
because she became a very firm fan favorite, and we know Jackie's a lovely actress, and she really did imbue her character with a lot of uh, just a lot of emotional truth. Some of the scenes I've seen back with her, you just go, that it's fantastic how much she got into it because the character was, the backstory was that she'd stolen money from the bank where she worked to fund her mother's World Discovery Tour, Women's Weekly World Discovery Tour, and to create such a believable, emotionally viable character from that platform was a great credit to her, and the relationship she established with the other characters, especially who did Peppy Trevor played?
Lexi
Uh,
Patterson.
yeah, Lexi Patterson. That's right. And they had a very good, strong bond. They really did, and then they created a believable. And I think that's always been the strength of Prisoner is they had so many good actresses come through that green room, and they just treasured the fact that they weren't playing the adjuncts of men. It wasn't like, oh, I'm playing somebody's girlfriend. I'm not playing somebody's wife. I'm not playing somebody's daughter. I'm
Yeah.
playing a woman with a story behind me. And they really did take that and run with it. And that was the great thing because they saw the opportunity. Me, I felt sort of reverse engineered. I was just somebody brought in to be the fiance, in a strange way. So my character I was like a prop, sort of, and not that I felt like that at the time, but looking back at the context of the whole thing, and a lot of the male characters were just brought in to sort of make the women's lives, sort of give them a bit of complexity or to show the problems they had, but
Yeah.
it was the relationship between the women and so many different sorts of relationships. The maternal, there was all sorts of different relationships they had, the way they'd fight with each other. It was a different world to what you'd seen on rather male-dominated television shows until then. And I think that's why people do have a lasting interest in it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even a lot of the cast came from theatre background. You
Yeah.
go back and watch it now, and the acting's just it's brilliant. And the other thing is, a lot of young people are getting into it now because they've watched Wentworth, the spin-off,
Yeah.
and then they've gone back and gone, "Oh, this was based on a show in the '70s," and then they've gone back to watch Prisoner now. So it's
Yeah.
generating all these younger fans that are like watching Prisoner. Yeah.
Well, that's why I can't look like I used to anymore because people stop me in the street too much, Matt. Uh, Sean Scully, on the other hand, hasn't changed at all, and he's constantly being stopped. And
Oh, I love Sean.
yes,
Yeah, no, Sean was at the event as well, and we've done an interview with
yes,
him. But yeah, he's great. Now your first episode was 592, which first aired on the 23rd of January, 1986. written and produced by Mari Trevor and directed by Steve Mann. And as I said, it was a dark time with the Luke Kelly riot and Joyce Barry being attacked and Eve Wilder being
Yes.
a phantom lagger. So was your first scene, did you say the one in the pool or the one where you're
Yeah.
in the hospital with
Well, I'm not sure. I know that I shot the pool scene was first. And I've never seen the first episode I was in.
go back and watch it?
I will have to. But I was it. Yeah, they may have shown me in the hospital first, where I was talking to Joyce, because I remember I was eating an apple, and I had to sort of do things with continuity, um, and yeah, so it might have been me eating the apple, then picture of me in my pool at home to establish that I was wealthy,
Yeah.
and a doctor, and I had a mother. So, I mean, that was the first week. Though I did know about my mother because I called mother, and but then we didn't see her. We didn't see her at all months later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, that would have been the first. And Steve Mann. Well, no, maybe Steve. Oh, maybe I've been wrong. Maybe it wasn't. I'm sure it was Kendall Flanagan was the first set up that.
Yeah, Kendall directed a lot of your episodes.
And Steve Mann, I remember well. He was a very meticulous director, very fine, and he went on to quite a lot of other things. I see his name occasionally still.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, you got me there. Now we'd have to go to the room at the Prisoner Fan Day to find somebody who could give her the answer to that.
Yeah.
And say, oh no, the pool scene followed. No, and I go, oh yes, well, you're right.
Now, one actor who I absolutely love, Ernie Bourne, who played Mervyn Pringle, you
Oh
had
yes.
great scenes with. What was it like working with Ernie?
It was fabulous, and Ernie and I used to lament because they're shooting so much television so quickly. Because we had a lot of comedy scenes, Ernie and I, or we thought they were comedy, maybe, but and we used to lament that they couldn't do it in a long shot so that they could get the two of us reacting rather than cut, sort of because he was delightful, wonderful sense of humour, and very very lovely man, Ernie. He was a great delight to work with. Yeah, and he and Joyce. I mean, just terrific people. So yeah, no, and he's sadly missed. Of course, it was quite some time now, but he was he was a he was very funny, and he was because he was off still doing his Dracula stuff and these various theatre restaurant shows at the time. So he'd come in sometimes quite tired, but always summon up energy for the scene and little ideas to make it a bit funnier. And oh, I could do this. And oh, I could do this. And yeah, it was lovely.
No, that's great. Great to hear
Yeah.
that. Now, during your period on Prisoner, there were some real formidable actors on the show, like Peter Adams, Val Gillay, Shane Connors, Sean Scully, Gerda Nicholson. I know some of them you didn't have direct scenes with, but as a young actor yourself at the time, were you sort of like learning from people like that who are
Oh
already?
yeah, no. Well, Peter Adams was funny because he'd look at the script and he was very quick. He was a very quick study. He'd come in and he'd just look at the script and so what are the jokes this week? What are the? He always called the lines the jokes, which was sometimes interesting, because yeah, I remember we did those scenes where he clambered out of a vent
Right.
and gave me a gun and. Yeah, I'm a young doctor going, what's this gun? I was busy, of course, putting a cold compress on Julie Egbert's forehead.
Saved your life with the face washer. Yeah.
Yeah, it saved her life and made her fall in love with me because nothing like sort of meeting somebody while you're in a coma to help you fall in love. And so, yeah, he was, yeah, he was great. I mean, because he was somebody who'd done so much television, you just go, okay, this is how it's done. He was very, very together. No, there were some, and the actresses, yeah, I mean, we had everybody. Linda Stoner was in it at the time. She came through.
Yeah.
So, because back in those days, you could smoke in the green room. and she smoked beedies. You know, those little sort of wrapped up leaf things that last for about 2 drags. And I've always been trying to give up smoking, so I said, "Oh, I'll try one of them," and they're good because they go out straight away. No, she was terrific. There were so many. Yeah, it was. And sometimes they'd sit around and try and figure out which actresses had not been in Prisoner, and there weren't many.
Yeah.
It really was. Every actress you could think of had been through that green room over the life of the show.
What was the green room like there? I've heard a lot of stories about it.
Well, I don't know if you've been in a waiting room in a women's hospital many times. I mean, I know before the births of my children, spending a bit of time in sort of various waiting rooms. It's a bit like that, Matt. You hear a lot about women's issues, and sometimes you might decide it's best to go for a walk to the canteen and get a drink of some sort. But no, it was good, but it wasn't like a footy changing room. Let's put it that way, Matt. It was a women's space, and you were just respectful of it while you were there.
Yeah, I get that. I do want to ask a few questions about the riot, the Lou Kelly riot, which started at episode 600 and written by a man who's loved by many, Ian Smith.
Yeah.
What was it like shooting those scenes compared to prior to the riot, where it was all a bit quieter and then the riot starts? What was your memories of like all
Well,
those?
I was a sort of non-combatant, so it's basically I remember it was basically watching Peter Adams crawl out of air vents and go back into them.
So
And
was he in an actual air event? Was it the actual?
they no they bodged some up. They actually got air vents and sort of so you could climb into them like a set,
Yep.
and they could shoot him sort of. He loved that. Let me tell you, Peter Adams loved crawling up air vents. He spent his whole career hoping to do that. Um, so and because there was a fierce fight, I believe, between Glenda Linscott's character and the Freak.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember there was a lot of talk about that because they shot that, and it was very difficult because it was a lot of stunt work and a lot of injuries and a lot of makeup because people had various wounds, and I basically escaped unscathed because I was just
Well,
sort of
Lurch brought you out with the knife. You remember Lois Colander? She
yes, no, she was
had the knife, and
yes, but I mean, but that was then I was just put in a room, and they all went back to fighting, and I sort of managed to not be cut at all, and see, Lurch had a bit of a soft spot for me, so she was never going to slice me. I never felt too threatened, but she was lovely too. She was a lovely character.
Yeah. So when you got the gun off Peter Adams, did you have to do any sort of like training with like working around weapons or anything like that, or prior?
No. These days you probably would, even if you just handle a gun in any situation. That the armaments person's in there for sort of a couple of weeks teaching you how to do these things. But no, because I was never going to actually shoot the gun or anything. It was just a dead thing that was handed to me, and I looked at it like a doctor would, going, "Oh, don't know. How do you? What? Oh no, I'm a man of peace." So no, so we were lucky because these days you do sometimes have to do a lot of training if you go anywhere near a gun.
Yeah.
So that would have slowed down.
Now, Louise Siverson, obviously, she had some really heavy parts through that riot, and she carried it right through. Do you remember like sort of working with Louise or watching?
Oh, I mean, the great credit to her when you read the way she basically developed her character. She moved herself into the show by force of performance. That she was so good at what she did. She brought such a genuine energy to that role. No, she was terrific, and such a good actress because she's not really a psychotic lunatic at all.
Yeah,
No,
she's not.
but watching the show, you'd think she were. So no, she's a sweetheart, and done so much good work in comedy since, which is a funny. That's what I've mostly seen her in is some very funny comedy stuff out of Melbourne. But oh no, she was, the look of she really created the character far more than myself. He just came in and said, "Oh, what do I do this week?" You know, I sort of, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I do this week." But you know, she was, and that was, yeah, it was performances like that that were the heart and soul of the show, because they, yeah, she brought more than the script writers to
Yeah.
the production.
And to her credit, she's very protective of that character still now. Like when we've spoken to her, and you know, I still remember those scenes in my head, like her eyes, and then when she finally
Oh,
cracked and wanted to start the riot, and like it was
yeah.
such brilliant acting.
Oh, yeah. No, no. Yeah, in a way, I think you know, the performance she gave there, she's deserved much. I mean, it's so competitive for actresses in this country, though. It's you got to get the breaks, and she's done fairly well. But yeah, she showed so much that yeah, could have been utilised if we had a bigger industry. She could have been an incredible star, but things fall the way they fall.
Yeah, they do. The way the cards fall.
Yeah.
Now I know you've spoken about Jackie Woodburne. We've touched on it, but you had some pretty close scenes with her in the cell when she was dying, and then the
Yes.
wedding, and
The
the
wedding, and then in the sort of what the after we were married, we were in the cell where anything's allowed to happen. But that was discreetly shot. They left us well alone there. No, she was so sweet, because yeah, it was just, and that was it was a very sweet, innocent relationship we had in a way. Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were just very nice young people, very nice young people who didn't want anything really complex from someone. They just wanted sort of find comfort in each other. So that was,
yeah, it was a
um,
great relationship.
yeah, it was quite lovely. And of course, she had to go through the acid flashback on the way there,
Yeah.
as my mother dosed her with acid before the wedding, trying to ruin everything.
Some great scenes. Also, you had a great scene with Maggie Kirkpatrick. Obviously, Maggie being legend of Prisoner. You have a memory working with Maggie?
Well, I think we had a scene with Maggie where she was holding a dog, and no, she was she she was very rightly contemptuous of my character, the sort of the lily-livered doctor, and no, it was good with Maggie. Yeah, Maggie was fabulous. So I do have to give myself a mention here, because you may remember that Maggie took up golf while I was on the show.
That's right.
Now, there was a moment in the green room where Maggie had come in fuming because they're trying to ruin my character. What are they doing? So they want the freak to take up ballroom dancing. What the F is going on here? And I said, why they want you to ballroom dancing? Oh, they want me to meet men. They want the freak to meet men, for freak's sake. And she said, oh, I said, well, maybe she could take up golf. Because I was playing a bit of golf in my spare time, and it was foremost in my mind. You could meet men playing golf, and she said, yes, that's great. And she was, within minutes, she was on the phone to various golf sort of suppliers, golf, you know, sort of getting clubs organised on Contra and this organised on Contra, and there we had the freak out playing golf, meeting men.
Wow.
I think she ended up doing a bit of ballroom dancing as well, but it was the golf that. That's my great contribution to Prisoner.
Oh, yes.
Was the freak playing golf.
I'm sure you're getting royalties for that storyline.
No, I get nothing, and I think the people who supplied her with golf material should be sending me something, you know, balls or something. I don't know.
It was weird the storyline with Joan at the time, meeting men and playing golf, and it was
Yeah, don't know what the show was beginning to look for sharks to jump about then. It was sort of they were conscious that they'd sort of been through their best years. I think they realised they'd done quite a lot, and yeah, they knew it was sort of winding down, but which was a shame, because as we see with Wentworth flourishing now, they could have, but you don't know what sort of problems they may have had behind in terms of Channel 10's sort of ailing finances, etc., etc. Who knows?
It's
Because
amazing to watch Wentworth and what they are actually able to do compared to what Prisoner was able to do at the time. You know, you sort of think back if Prisoner had that sort of opportunity to do what Wentworth, I mean, you couldn't back then, but
no, no.
it would have been absolutely like even bigger than what it is now.
So I always used to find it funny that because we'd shoot out at Channel 10 Nunawading, and they to a large extent a lot of the show was shot out the back with the studio buildings being the prison, which was sort of strangely close to the truth for some of them. You know, sort of. I mean, you know, Elspeth Ballantyne had been there for a long time. I'm not sure she didn't feel imprisoned by the show. She used to go through the things that had happened to her character over the years. Yeah. When she'd be regaling us in the green room, and you just go, "My goodness me, my goodness me."
Now, I think it was when we caught up in Oakley for coffee last year. You mentioned about the how the story come about with the centerfold spread and the photo.
Oh,
Can you tell the fans about that?
well, there's a lot of to do about that. Because I was an athletic young man. I'd been playing a lot of cricket and football. I was quite healthy, and I think that's one of the reasons they got me in. And they decided to do a nude centerfold shot, and there's a whole drama. The studio had to be locked off, and it's just me and a photographer and a football in the studio, and I had to hold the football in a sort of demure place. Not unlike, I think Mark McClure at the time had done a centerfold as a footballer with a football place to preserve his dignity, if you could use that term at all in such a situation. And yeah, so there I was in the locked off studio, and a lot of pictures taken, and that was. And again, it was one of those interesting things you find that wasn't mentioned in the initial character outline of 2 pages that I'd seen before I took the role. That former nude model, no, that hadn't been mentioned. But there I was, and so yeah, and it was all very discreetly done and very funny and badly lit and strange, and a lot of pictures of me looking very awkward. I remember there's just a page of looking at those pictures of me looking awkward. And not a natural nude model, Matt. Although, and so the football looked more comfortable, really. So yeah, that was that. But then in the end, I think they got a picture of a muscle builder and put my head on it. I know that was that's something I have seen. Now, I think also the centerfold shot may have been glimpsed briefly in one of the episodes.
Yeah, well,
but that was the story of that. It was a big day, locked off set, sort of everyone. There's Peter Hayes doing his nude shots, and
none of the cast are trying to sort of peer in.
No. They made sure everyone was locked out. No, and I don't know how many people were up in the control room, but no, it was all locked off and very discreetly done. Very tasteful.
They gave you the negatives, like, so you were the only one that had.
I did get the negatives, and I gave them away to somebody who's now a prominent theatre director. She's got a production coming up, but I imagine she burnt them or lost them or trashed them at some point back in the 80s. I don't think you'll be able to find them anywhere.
I'll find them now.
And if you do, you'll just find a lot of excellent shots of a football.
Yeah,
with somebody standing awkwardly behind it or lying on a chaise longue, I think it was. A chaise longue with a football. There's a combination.
There we go.
Yeah.
The heartthrob of the 80s.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Keep saying it.
You do I'll be a heartthrob in my 80s soon. Okay. You
do have a lot of fans still to today. I think you see the Talking Prisoner, the Facebook page, and there's always comments and everyone talking about you. A lot of people looking forward to this interview as well.
Yes, I'd like to have a call out to David Logan up in Brisbane, an old friend who is a Facebook friend of mine, and he often is very supportive of me and my efforts in Prisoner. He's very kind. He said he was looking forward to this episode, and David.
He actually sent me a message last night, and
okay,
he wanted me to ask you how you felt Do you think they sort of sexually? He thinks maybe. I better just double check the.
Yeah, see what he
Better double
said.
check the message so I don't get it wrong.
No.
Give me 1 second, and I will. Here we go. Matt, I've got to know Peter well over a number of years. Please ask him how he felt being used as a temporary male sex symbol for the show. He had to appear in skimpy black speedos a number of times, even though his character had no need to. Did you feel used?
Uh, Look, we sort of touched on that before when I was discussing how the women's roles were much more rounded, and I was really just brought in to give Julie Egbert what they thought would be a nice exit from the show. Married to a doctor, you can't do much better than that.
Yeah.
Off to be a doctor's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I you were great in the show. You're amazing. Like you had so many sort of different arcs that you had to play. You're the doctor, then you're the handyman, and you're trying to be a doctor, and then you're getting married. And there was a lot going on.
Oh yes, no, and very rapidly, and yeah, when you go 32 episodes, a lot happened. And what was funny, as somebody coming from just pretty much straight out of drama school and being trained to do theatre and all these sorts of serious things, was when you tried to figure out how many days had gone by. Like 32 episodes, that's that's what, 16 weeks, or it's probably only about 9 days, but it wasn't like 9 days because the time is so weird in a television show, and that's where the makeup people used to struggle with that, because you'd have fearsome injuries, or I never did, but like the Freak or Glenda Linscott playing Rita the Beater, but they would heal miraculously, because if you figured out how many days it had been since they'd been virtually knocked unconscious and bludgeoned to death, 3 days later, which might be 4 weeks in television time, they're looking fresh as a daisy.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember you'd hear the makeup people saying, well, we have to, and we'll just keep, and you'll be fine by then. But that's only 3 days after the event. Doesn't matter. It's all right. So, yeah, there was always that sort of what is real, and go back to, and that's where the actresses had to be credited, because the relationships were real, and so you didn't worry too much about the fact that what's the timeline here, what's happened, because a lot happens. You have to have a lot happening, otherwise people won't watch. Yeah. So, yeah, and I suppose also they give credit for things happening that you don't see. Like, obviously, Julie Egbert and Stephen Ryan must have spent some time together when she wasn't in a coma before they fell in love. But
Happened straight away.
That happened off screen, presumably, in lovely, touching scenes off screen. Because I just remember, because I do remember going, oh, what, we're getting married? Well, we only just met. Well, I can see why my mother's upset. Yeah.
Wow. And Prisoner in 1986, obviously being one of the biggest shows on Australian television, did it open any doors for you after you had gone?
Well, no, and probably my own fault. I have to admit, I always saw myself as a theatre actor more.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I couldn't find enough theatre directors who did see that as well. So no, but it was also because I wasn't going to stay in Melbourne. Now, there's all sorts of complex reasons why I didn't want to stay in Melbourne. But I think if I'd stayed in Melbourne, it probably would have worked better for me. And because there was a lot of the degeneration, people like that were happening at the time in Melbourne, and they were all, many of them were friends of mine from university, or people I'd worked with at university, Melbourne University. So that was something, my desire to get back to Sydney and do things here, because I had an agent up in Sydney. So, yes, but let's not reduce this to tears as I talk about the failed decisions I made in my career. I think soon after that, I was fortunate to be Sean Scully's understudy in something called play Peter Nicholls' Passion Play, which is on at the Opera House for 13 weeks.
Oh man.
Gary Penny, who produced it, lost a lot of money on that. And but I was actually reading a review of it the other day, and I won't raise it again because if Sean's watching this, I wouldn't want him to be upset. But and when I say I was his understudy, I never went on. And Sean's a little bit shorter than I am, and I noticed very early there was no backup costume for me. So there were a lot of lines to learn, and I thought, well, that's not going to be necessary, is it? No. And as understudy, I also had sort of go on as very supernumerary parts in the play. But yeah, so that was, yeah, and theatres, again, you know, theatre's a funny beast. You get in, you get out, you miss things, you don't. So, yeah, but, you know, I'm still going, and, you know, I do a very good Santa Claus season these days, Matt. You've got to believe
Yeah,
that.
I put that photo up. The fans went crazy. They loved it.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm glad they did, because that was just an amusing opportunity that presented itself to me in a Woolworths one day when I was marauding around being Santa back on the ice.
That was great. Can I ask? Obviously, you love theatre, working in theatre more than TV. I can assume.
Yeah.
Why do you like? What's your passion for theatre versus working on a TV show?
Well, theatre, the audience is there, and you know if you're holding them with your story. Now, TV is great, but it goes to somebody who edits it, and you don't even know which version they'll put in. So you don't know what your performance is until you see it.
No.
And so you've got a lot of people, I won't say meddling, and a lot of it can be, you know, improving what you do, and they can make you look better. But in theatre, you know if you're getting things across. If people are sort of eating sweets noisily and chatting amongst themselves, you know you have to do a bit better. So, and also it's a much deeper study. With theatre, you get 3 or 4 weeks or maybe more to rehearse and find out what the characters are about and to really explore deep. In television, I mean, and because there's some very good actors in Prisoner, you can get a lot of work done quite quickly, and you know, but you've got 10 minutes to prepare for a scene, rather than, you know, sort of 10 days, and that does make things tricky. And sometimes, you know, you're adjusting the script. I mean, you're getting a sort of a script adjustment as you're going. The script's changed. Oh, okay. So there is that. It goes fast, and that can be good to get things done fast and to get things quick. But I just, you know, old-fashioned sort of intellectual wanker, and I like to be a bit deep about things.
No, I could see that. And I mean, I'd be a little bit
You
confused.
can see that I'm an intellectual wanker. Is that what you're saying, Matt?
No, I'm not calling you a wanker. No.
No, thanks, Matt. Thank you.
No, but I think the thing I've been to a lot of theatre shows is what I think I'd find confusing as an actor in theatre is you could be doing like the show tonight and you've got this like amazing audience, and you're doing the exact same show tomorrow night, but you've got maybe a different kind of audience that don't find something funny or are not liking what they're seeing, but you're doing the exact same show as what you did the night before. Does that often happen?
Well, you think you are, but that's sort of part of the fun of it, because I've known, you know, often you're in a show and you come off at heart, you know, at the interval or something, and people say, "Oh, not a very good house tonight," and you go, "Well, maybe, but they're different." You just had to say, "Well, they're different. Let's see if we can find out what they do like and what does communicate to them." Because often there was a great story told by a fellow. I did the directing course out at NIDA, and a chap came from the Comedy Française to direct a production for the third year students, and he told a story about when he was a young actor, and in a lot of French theatre there's scenes where one actor will talk and talk and talk and talk, and the other one will just sort of interject with something, not unlike this interview, Matt. And so he was, as the young actor, was opposite this very grand, famous French actor that everyone in the audience had come to see, and the very famous actor's doing his scene. It's all going very well, and the young actor, his line was, after some, you know, he's nervous, and eventually he says, "Could I have a cup of tea?" And something like that. And and the first night he did it, got a fantastic laugh. The house, they fell about. Just, that's the funniest thing they'd ever seen. And then, so the next night, he's looking forward to doing his part again. And and it goes, and the other actor's doing his marvelous thing. It's going very well. And, could I have a cup of tea? Not a sound from the house. No one. And the young actor was just, afterwards, he said to the older actor, he said, "What happened? Last night, they loved that line, and tonight, not a thing." And the old actor said, well, last night you asked for a cup of tea. Tonight you asked for a laugh. And so that's the thing in theatre, is never to expect a response, but to just play what's there. And I mentioned before, I played a lot of football and cricket, and it's a bit like football. You go out there and you try and do the same thing every week, but different things happen. Some weeks you're not so good. So some weeks you drop the ball instead of catching it. And you just have to make do with that and get on with it. And live theatre's like that. Sometimes you just get something slightly wrong early, and then you have to sort of adjust to the fact, that actually, because that's the first time these people have seen it. You've always got to remember, in theatre, you might be doing the play for the 100th time. There's people out there who've never seen it.
Yeah.
And so what's familiar to you is strange to them. And you might glide through something thinking, that'll do it, they'll know that. They don't. And so you go, actually, they missed it, we've got to get it back. So, but that is, I think, why I prefer theatre, because it is so lively.
Yeah.
It's a matter of what's happening, and also that you can create such, I suppose I talked before about how the actresses in Prisoner created such real relationships. That's the only thing in theatre that is real, is the relationships created. Everyone knows, these are actors, and those are props, and this is a set. But the relationships those characters have are real, and the audience is witnessing them for the only time that they'll occur in that room, in that space, and that's the one shared thing. So that's the great thing, that you're giving somebody a moment in time. And you say television does that too, but then you can replay it. It's almost how ephemeral theatre is that makes it so special, that it's just that one chance. Yeah.
What advice would you give to an up-and-coming actor, actress who wants to get into the industry? I
would advise them to get as well trained across the widest range of skills they could. It's now very important to be able to sing and dance. And I remember a dear old friend of mine, I say friend, Avril McQueen was an actress who she was in a school play I did, and I ran into her a few years after that school play. We'd been in The Crucible. She was at St. Michael's, and I was at university, and I said, but I think I want to be an actor. She said, you need to do some singing and dancing training. And I went, not me. I'd be an actor in the grand style. But that is the thing, is and now you see young actors have to be very physically well prepared. I mean, it's like, I was saying before, I played a bit of football and cricket, and so they got me doing sort of nude scenes in Prisoner. But now everybody's incredibly buffed, and I wasn't really buffed by modern standards at all. I was just somebody who played a bit of sport. And so you just have to be across a lot of things. You need to have your accents right, because you need to be able to do an American. When you say American accent, you need to be able to do several American accents, because you need to be able to do a Southern American, a California, a New York. You need to have all those skills. And because our industry is not large, and some people do make it through good fortune, but the people who make it and really have careers have sort of taken luck out of the equation by being very good in several fields. If you can sing and dance, so when you're not doing a television show, people like Philip Quast, for example, to say somebody, one of my contemporaries I've never worked with, never met, but he's somebody, musicals, straight stuff, anything you like, he can do it. And and you really need to put yourself in that position to be able to weather the vicissitudes of a rather fragile industry.
And do theatre? Would you suggest theatre? Starting theatre?
Oh, look, theatre's a great thing to do, but um, there's like take musical theatre. There are some very good musical theatre performers in this country who don't get the two lead female roles that are available at the time. Or you might have, but you imagine there might be 6 really good female roles being played in musicals at any given time, and there's probably 60 actresses who could do really well in any of those. And I perhaps should have said 60 actors, but the thing is that it does come down to opportunities sometimes aren't there, no matter how talented you are. I think of Essie Davis, who is a very fine actress, from various things on television she's done recently. She was in the same year as Kate Blanchett at NIDA, and
Oh, wow.
she came out. She had to go to England really to establish a career, because it was when she got roles there that they said, "Oh yeah, okay," because they've been giving everything to Kate, and Essie was sort of running second. And you go, well, running second isn't much use. You're out of work. There's no silver prize.
I get that. Now, 2 things before we wrap up. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked, that I haven't touched on? Anything you'd like to say or talk about?
Your secret life, Matt.
My secret.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Or disappoint.
No. No, I don't think so. Wide ranging as it's been good. No, there's nothing particular, though. Perhaps people should be stronger on the issue of feral cats. But nothing much to do with Prisoner.
If there was one character you could have played on Prisoner, who would you have liked to have played?
No. What of the characters that were extant? Well,
Any character or a new character, something different.
I'll take that on notice, Matt. That's a good question. What characters should they have had in there? It's a shame that they didn't bring Stephen Ryan back as the prison psychiatrist. That would have been very good.
Definitely.
Could have had some interesting scenes there. No, that would have been no. I think that's my disappointment, that Stephen wasn't kept on as the prison psychiatrist.
Excellent. I'm actually surprised they didn't bring you and Jackie back just for something at a later stage.
I think we were busy doing the Barretts of Wimpole Street at Marion Street or something by then. That was the last time I appeared with Jackie up in a theatre. They're bringing back that theatre. You know that you've been in the industry a long time when they bring back theatres that you saw close during your career.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, up in Marion Street Theatres up in the northern suburbs of Sydney, and John Crummell ran it for a long time. Then it basically just, I don't know why it subsided. It's very difficult, very expensive to run theatres. That's probably why. Yeah. But they're bringing it back, which I think is good. More theatres is because there is not enough theatre. Theatre is a great community event. This is the thing, when you watch television, you're just sitting in a room with your family or maybe on your own. But at least at the theatre, you're sitting with a lot of other people.
Theatre's amazing. I mean, especially in Melbourne as well. Like I took my daughter to a lot of theatre before COVID. And they've got the restaurants there, and you go and have a dinner, and then you go to the show, and it's just like a whole different atmosphere.
It is a wonderful event. Yes, that's right. It is. It's a great event. So yeah, that's yes. Anyhow, that's so.
That's it. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
I really appreciate your time, Peter. And next time you're in Melbourne, we'll catch up for coffee again.
Yep.
My shout. And yeah, and once again, thanks for coming to the event last year. It was an amazing afternoon. And
Any more events planned? Are you promoting any more events, Matt?
everyone wants another one this year.
Yeah.
It was our third one last year. Yeah.
How many years apart have they been before this?
We did our first one in 22, then we did one in 23, and then the
Okay,
one.
so it's big. It's an annual event, Matt. The pressure's on.
Yeah.
Has it always been the same venue?
Always the same. Yeah. It's a good venue. I like it there. It's
Chips with everything, though. I'm not sure about the food. Not sure.
the food was good. It was really intimate, like the space, and
Yes, that was good.
it's a good spot for everyone to get to. I would love to have one out at Channel 10 out in the ground. That would be
That's a good idea. Yeah. No, that could work.
yeah.
Yeah. You should talk to Channel 10 about that.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, Matt. That's great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everything else you've done. I'll see you
Good.
soon.
Okay. Bye, Matt.
Bye.
I used to give her roses. I wish I could again, but that was on the outside, and things were different then. We'd build our world together, sharing all the love we'd known, till I had to face the nightmare of waking up alone. On the inside the sun still shines, and the rain falls down, but the sun and rain are prisoners too when morning comes around. Last night I dreamed we were together, sharing all the love we'd known, till I had to face the nightmare of waking up alone. On the inside the sun still shines, and the rain falls down, but the sun and rain are prisoners too when morning comes around. On the inside the roses grow, they don't mind the stony ground, but the roses here are prisoners too when morning comes around. I used to give her roses. I wish I could again, but that was on the outside, and things were different then.